Good afternoon, morning, evening, wherever you are. Welcome to this History Chat Live, Thursday tea time History Chat as we began it all those months ago. If you're returning here, thank you for coming back. Thank you for supporting me and joining me. And if you're new here, then welcome, new friend. Welcome, new history buff. And we have got quite a bit we're going to be talking about today. Hello, welcome everyone joining. Welcome also if you are watching on the catch-up on IGTV, YouTube, or indeed listening on the podcast. You are all well. Excuse me one moment while I look at something technical. No, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. So today, I actually, did you notice, got a little bit more organised, and I posted on Instagram, at least, I posted what topics we were going to go through. There you go. How organised is that? There's quite a bit. Again, this history of monarchy, I mean, there's so it always just throws up stuff. So we've had quite a good week of live events, and actually every week you can find me doing live events most days of the week, other than the weekends. I do need some time off. Hi Dennis, hi Ash, and Anidita. I hope that's how you pronounce it. Thank you for joining me. Hi, welcome. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, please do leave me a comment or wave or double tap if you're on Instagram, or put your thumbs up and whatever on YouTube, and leave me a comment, because I am reading them as well as talking. So Marianne, good morning. Welcome from California. Helping you get ready for your day, I hope. Welcome, Lisa. So what are we going to be talking about today? So what did I promise? Henry VII, the Builder, which is what we were talking about in the latest Visiting Tudor Britain room. So we'll be talking about that. Tourists behaving badly was our Monday night room, actually, on Clubhouse. That was quite amusing. So we'll talk about that. And then we've got things that we're on or very near to the anniversary of. Monica, hi, ciao, how are you? Haven't seen you for a while. I hope you're well. So yes, we've got some anniversaries coming up. Obviously, the anniversary of the Gunpowder Plot. You know that one, I imagine. Is it actually? Is it as big everywhere else? You tell me. We have a significant event in the Glorious Revolution, of which I put a video out on YouTube yesterday, and the podcast also, the podcast version is out, about it's an introduction to the Glorious Revolution. Okay, don't expect some kind of massive hour-long documentary on it, but we're near to the anniversary of the landing of William III, or William of Orange, who would become William III. So we'll talk about that. Princess Charlotte. Princess Charlotte is somebody who I think we should know the name of, and she should be just better known. So we'll talk about her, because we're coming up to the anniversary of her death. Oh, also, if anyone's looking on my Instagram story, I think it's only there that I've shared it at the moment, and my bloopers from this week. Honestly, I know it looks all amazingly polished when it goes out. Not quite, maybe, but yeah, I even made myself laugh. I could not say Gunpowder Plot. Kept coming out as Gunpowder. And when I was talking about Princess Charlotte, so we'll come on to this in a bit, but the death of Princess Charlotte precipitated a really bizarre baby race. Hi, everyone who's joining. I'm talking about the death of Princess Charlotte. I'll come back and talk about it in a bit more detail in a short while. But yeah, it precipitated this baby race. So the children of the king at the time, George III, so his children, there was only one who was married. The others had mistresses. They had a heap of illegitimate children between them. But with the death of Princess Charlotte, that was the happy Diwali, Anadita. Indeed, happy Diwali to you. With her death came this. Sorry, she was the only legitimate heir, so came this baby race. And all I needed to say was they had to ditch their mistresses and find wives. I could not say ditch their mistresses for love and money. Monica's normally at school at this time. Yes, of course. That's good, though, that you're back there. Is it all okay? As okay as it can be? So we'll come back to speaking about Princess Charlotte in a bit, but if you have seen my bloopers, I hope you enjoyed them. I'm also going to just let you know what's coming up. I've got some quite cool things coming up in Patreon, but I'll let you know kind of because they're around about all sorts of interesting topics. Yeah, so there we go. There's quite a lot. First of all, I want to say, Monica, thumbs up. First of all, I want to say that I am extremely proud that another tour has totally now sold out. So if you were hoping to come on the Life and Times of Elizabeth I next July, I'm afraid all of the spaces are now gone. So that's completely booked. So we only take around 20 on each tour. The idea being they're very, they're I was going to say exclusive. They are exclusive, but the reason they're exclusive is because that's what I believe you need to get the most out of it. We've got 5 historians on the tour. We're going to a multitude of places. Have a look on the website if you're interested, just to see the itinerary, even if you're just a bit nosy. Go for it. Go and have a look. It's on British History Tours. .com. Have you lost my... Right, sorry. Right, someone has tried to call me. It's a spam call and it comes through every blinking few minutes, and I think it's knocked my sound off on Instagram. I'm going to start again. There's always something. So annoying. Right. I'd also thought I'd set it up so that doesn't happen. Let's go again. Sorry, those on YouTube. Bear with me, caller. I used to say that when I was a receptionist. Hello, everyone. Back on Instagram. Thank you for sticking with me, those of you on YouTube. Instagram Live, it's driving me crazy. If somebody comes in on a phone call, then it knocks my sound off. Anyway, so we're talking about Princess Charlotte, and we'll come back to speaking. Thank you, everyone, for coming back on. I hope, can you let me know if my sound is okay on Instagram now? Hopefully it is. It's very annoying that happens when someone tries to call me. So shall we start off with Princess Charlotte? Would people like to start off with Princess Charlotte? She is someone in history who not only was her death significant. Fabulous, Janice says she can hear me now. Not only was Charlotte's death significant, but during her lifetime, she was the people's princess. She was an English rose. She was an antidote to the excesses of the Georgian monarchy and the House of Hanover. She was so well loved. She married Prince Leopold of Saxe-Coburg, Luxembourg. Prince Leopold of Saxe-Coburg. He was the uncle, of course. If you've watched anything about Queen Victoria, he was the uncle of Prince Albert, who Queen Victoria went on to marry. And Charlotte's story is totally wound into Victoria's story. Now, of course, well, I'll go on to explain, they never met. Charlotte was married. Obviously, she'd already been married. She was 21 and she went to term. I think she'd had a couple of miscarriages, but this pregnancy went to term. In fact, she was going a little bit overdue. And she went into labour. I think it was on the 2nd of November. We were in 1817. And the labour was long and arduous. By the way, I've got a video coming out about this on Saturday, if you want to watch it. But the labour was long and arduous, and the baby was born on the 5th of November, and it was a boy, and he was full term. He was a 9 pounds baby. But the length of the labour had just been too much, and the baby didn't survive. Charlotte seemed quite stoic. She's young. She's managed to carry this one to term. Next time it will be better. but within a few hours, she began to become really poorly. And by the early hours of the following morning, so this is the 6th of November, 1817, she died. And it was just a huge shock to the nation. Princess Charlotte was someone who was as popular as we think of, or at the time of her death, Princess Diana. And that was this is the level of public outpouring of grief for this princess. Then, so you have the emotional, the grief side of losing this person who was really well loved in the country. On top of that, she's George III's only legitimate heir. So only one legitimate grandchild from all his children. And she's died giving birth to the then next generation as well. So 2 generations of those in line to the throne are gone in one incident. And so her father, by the way, is George, Prince of Wales. So he's who would go on to be regent, and then George IV. And it's the ensuing baby race that I spoke of earlier that results in the birth of Victoria, Alexandrina Victoria, who was crowned Queen Victoria just after, or became Queen Victoria just after her 18th birthday. So Charlotte and Charlotte's death is pivotal. It's so significant in the line of the British monarchy. And then if you go on to think about Victoria and the impact her children and other descendants and grandchildren had on European history, the mind boggles as to what could have been different had Charlotte have survived. So Marion says, is Princess Charlotte buried within the monument for her in the royal vault? So Princess Charlotte's monument that Marianne on YouTube is referring to is, how would you describe a monument that, I mean, it's beautiful, but it's it transmits that grief so powerfully. It's in St George's Chapel, Windsor, where Charlotte's buried. I don't know for certain, Marion, without looking it up, but I imagine she is in the vault. But her monument, Google it after this, is so it is beautiful. It's huge as well. It's absolutely huge, and it just goes to show the level of grief. It's a shrouded female figure lying, and the baby's been taken up to heaven by angels. It's really, really moving, really moving. But you know, you try and it's a little bit better than it was a couple of years ago. But I was going to say, you try looking up Princess Charlotte, and in books of monarchy, I think she should be in there, and yet you've got to do a bit of digging to find an image of her. And of course, we've got the beautiful little Princess Charlotte now, who is the daughter of Prince William and Kate Middleton. So of course, she comes up in Google results, which is fun. But I do think Princess Charlotte should be a little better known. So if you're interested, then I've got a video coming out about her on Saturday. Although I've probably just told you pretty much what's in it. But there you go, with a few pictures as well. So what else are we going to talk about? Henry VIII, not Henry VIII this week, Henry VII as builder. And this was our Visiting Tudor Britain room last Friday. So I've been speaking to you for months now about what we've been doing on Clubhouse, and 2 of our rooms that we were doing on Clubhouse, this is why I call them rooms because that's what they're called on Clubhouse, we have moved to Instagram. The idea being we can then record, they're recorded, they're put onto IGTV, and you can get them on catch up. So we reach more people. And there's the 2 rooms, History After Dark, that we've done that with, and Visiting Tudor Britain. Hello, Orlando. Welcome. Thank you for joining us from Rio. Beautiful. So anyway, Henry VII, the Builder. So this was the second in the latest series of visiting Tudor Britain. I do this with Deb Royal from Tudor Times and Sarah Morris from the Tudor Travel Guide. Now, we're going to go through Tudor royalty and the places associated with them. So actually tomorrow at 4:00, if you're around on Instagram, we are going live on Sarah's profile. That's at the Tudor Travel Guide. And we're talking about Elizabeth of York. So following in the footsteps of Elizabeth of York. But last week was Henry VII's turn. And we talked about the chapel at Westminster. Hi, Michael. We talked about the chapel at Westminster Abbey. So it's referred to as Henry VII's chapel. It's actually the Lady Chapel at Westminster Abbey. And I'll come back to that actually, because that's the one I covered, and I do find it very interesting. And where else did we do? Woodstock Manor. I've spoken on here about Woodstock Manor before, because that is the one that was in the grounds eventually of Blenheim Palace and was completely and utterly destroyed on the orders of Sarah Churchill, 1st Duchess of Marlborough. And Sarah covered it for us. And I had not appreciated how huge Woodstock Manor had been. I think she might do a blog on it at some point, because it was, I thought it was a hunting lodge. Well, it kind of was, as in the court would go there and the hunting was great around it. But it was one of the few places that could accommodate the whole of the court at the same time. So then you start to get an idea of how large it must have been. And Deb talked about Richmond Palace, which was Sheen. If you ever see the Palace of Sheen referred to, that was then updated, and Henry VII renamed it Richmond after his title as Earl of Richmond, prior to being king, obviously. Then that kind of trumps it, doesn't it? So we spoke about these places. Now, Westminster Chapel, I am also covering. I'm delivering a talk next week. I'm really excited about this, because this should have been in 2020, this talk that I'm delivering next week, as should so many other things have been. And it is about the history of Westminster and Whitehall. And some of you will have noticed I've shared some of the pictures of the old the drawings, obviously, of Westminster and Whitehall. And I've also put a reel on Instagram with the Great Hall at Westminster, and showing it in 1800 something, can't remember the year, to the present day. And I've got a few of those reels that I'm going to do and put out over the next week or so, showing what the area was like then and what it is like now, what the view is now. Michael says the tomb of Henry VII was carved by Torrigiano. Yes, Torrigiano. Sorry, yes, it was a contemporary pupil of Michelangelo. His head of Christ. I read that too quickly. So it said his head is in the Wallace collection. His head of Christ is in the Wallace collection. Yeah, and Torrigiano, he gave. Didn't he give Michelangelo a broken nose? He gave someone a broken nose. I've told you that before, and now I've forgotten who it was. Oh my goodness, me and names. I have a lot to remember. Yeah, he was a fiery character, Torrigiano, the sculptor of Henry VII's tomb in the chapel. Oh, there we go. Michael says yes. That was right. Cool. So yeah, have a look on my reels, because I will share some. I'm trying to get the angles lined up so that I can as best merge the old images with the new view, the current view of Westminster and Whitehall. But effectively, the talk that I'm delivering is about why is Westminster sited where it is? So right back to the root of that, because that is important. The spiritual placement of Westminster Abbey led to the political, or the king moving the court there, and then that, of course, wherever you've got the king, you have the seats of power. So we have what is now Whitehall building up along a street called King Street, which headed from Westminster towards the City of London, towards St. Paul's, in that direction. Obviously, I'm doing this. Sorry, people on the podcast, I'm making gesticulations again, but it follows the curve of the Thames. So around King Street, you start getting people who are linked to the court, want to be linked to the court, supplying the court. They start to settle there, including the Archbishop of York. And a subsequent Archbishop of York, of course, was Thomas Wolsey, Henry VIII's Chancellor, Archbishop, Cardinal, blah, 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 everything. And that he had this, so that's why it's called York Place, because it's the seat, the London residence of the Archbishop of York. And it's confiscated when Wolsey, I think he was arrested on today in history, actually. When he was arrested and his possessions confiscated, didn't bother Henry that that York Place was in fact owned by the Diocese of York. That didn't bother Henry. He took it anyway, and him and Anne Boleyn quite quickly began their plans for their own palace. Anne was about to inherit her predecessors' palaces. So this one, she could have a hand in the design of, the layout, and everything that went with it. So York Place was going to be turned into this new palace. Now, I read Simon Thurley's book about Houses of Power. I would definitely recommend, if you're interested in Tudor architecture and buildings, read Houses of Power by Simon Thurley. And in there, from my understanding of what I was reading, is that Whitehall Palace could very well have been a replacement for Westminster Palace. I mean, they're very close together. They're very close together, because Westminster Palace had yet another fire. It had a lot. It's why it doesn't look like the old palace now, because there was another fire in 1824. That's totally off the top of my head, but in Victoria's reign there was another massive fire. We only have the Great Hall and the Jewel Tower remaining after that, which is why our Houses of Parliament look very well. They don't look Victorian. They look like the Henry VII Chapel, because Charles Barry, who designed the Houses of Parliament, based his design on the Henry VII Chapel, which is perpendicular Gothic. Check me out. Anyway, so where's I go? Oh yes, so there seems to be an insinuation in what Simon was reading, unless I've totally misinterpreted it, that Whitehall, the Palace of Whitehall, would be the new Westminster, because the name Whitehall Palace was a colloquial name. And why do you have a colloquial name? To distinguish it. So this is what is in normal, everyday language. Well, we're going to call that one Whitehall Palace, because the old Westminster was still being used. It was badly badly destroyed. You can't be badly destroyed, either destroyed or you're not. But there was enough of it still left to be used. So there had to be some distinction between the old and the new palace. Anyway, so it's so funny, isn't it, though, that we get the name Whitehall from this sort of colloquial use, and now it's the name of it's the name of the street, it's the name of the area, and it's the name of the government of our government. As in, you'll hear news reports that something has come out of Whitehall, because that's where our government buildings are still. Hi, Phil. Where our government buildings are still located. So something will come out of Whitehall. So this name that began colloquially is now massively important. Right. Right, let me see where I am. Marianne says, was Whitehall part of the Great Fire of London? No. So Whitehall is... No, it's basically in a different part of London. So the Great Fire of London hit the City of London, which if you have a look on... Maybe I can put a post out about this, actually. But if you have a look at my video about the Great Fire of London, you'll see that was mainly contained to the City of London, which is around the bend of the Thames, where the Tower of London is. Luckily, it didn't get the Tower of London. Otherwise, it would have gone boom, boom, because it was the armoury and the place where all the gunpowder was kept. So no, but Westminster Palace had a number of fires, and Whitehall Palace was eventually destroyed by fire as well. And the only remaining parts we have of Whitehall Palace are the banqueting house, which is James I era. And we've got Queen Mary's steps around the back, which people love to point out, which I love pointing out, actually, because it just shows where the run of the Thames used to be. And then with the Victorian embankment works, which put in sewage systems and etc. for the city, or for London, I shouldn't say the city because it's not technically the city. The line of the Thames is much farther back now. In terms of the Tudor Palace, there's Wolsey's wine cellar, which obviously was York Place, not Whitehall Palace, but splitting hairs here. That was discovered and moved, or uncovered and moved, during the building of our now Ministry of Defence, which is a massive building. So you can't go and see it unless you're someone very special. And then there is a wall and a corridor which was part of Henry VIII's real tennis court. That is within another government building on the other side. I looked it up yesterday. I can't remember which building, but it's on the other side, on the Downing Street side of Whitehall now. Michael's just said there are some remains at the Downing Street site. I used to see them when I worked there. Yes. So they're not. So when I say there's nothing to see, as in the public can't have access to them, they're within or underneath government buildings. Although you can see photographs of them. There's a book by... oh my goodness. Right, it's just called Whitehall, Colin Brown. There's a book called Whitehall by Colin Brown, which goes into quite a long history of Whitehall. That's a really good book to get. But also, if you're interested in the palace particularly, another Simon Thurley book on Whitehall Palace is really worth a look, that you can see how much I've used it. So I've got this talk next week. Can't wait. Like I say, 2 years almost in the running. And it's... I was going to show you the bits that were left, but I might have to leave that to another day. Oh, here we go. So I've got 2 nails that aren't painted. I feel really embarrassed. So I'm going to do my best to keep... No, I can't keep much shots on it. So you've got the corridor. And Michael, do you recognise this? And there you go, the north wall of Henry's covered tennis court. So there you go. So that's a great book to get. But yeah, so I'm really looking forward to giving this talk. I love the it's a butterfly effect thing that you can run through the history. How did this boggy island, by the way, where Westminster Abbey it's on somewhere called Thorny Island. Marianne, would I film my talk and place it on YouTube? I did think about doing that, and I may well do that if I can do the tech. I'm like that sitcom where write it, star in it, film it, edit it. But I will try and do my best. If I don't, I might just record it as a talk and put it on anyway. Yes, so it's on a place called Thorny Island, Westminster Abbey. And Marion says, please do. And so it was a passing place on the Thames. It was a part that was at low tide people could pass, and it got sort of spiritual roots, connotations. People could feel it felt special. It felt like a special place. And that's the beginning. And then from that, it is the seat of power in Britain anyway. And think about it from there in the past for how much else of the world. And it's come out of that spot, that geographical location, quite small, quite compact, and you can trace why that is. So yeah, as you can tell, I'm quite enthusiastic about it. I'm looking forward to doing that. So Michael says there's a massive labyrinth of tunnels under Whitehall. Yeah, I imagine. Maybe one day they'll let me in. Maybe one day I'll be Prime Minister. No, thanks. So yeah, so what have we done? Princess Charlotte, we've done Whitehall. So and Henry VII's Chapel at Westminster. So like I've just said as well, it does have a massive impact on the look of the whole area, because the Palace of Westminster, the Houses of Parliament, you can use them interchangeably, is modelled on the Henry VII or Lady Chapel, if you want to be precise or correct or whatever. I don't know. So that was a fun discussion. That went quite well. But have a look. Keep an eye on my reels. I'll going to do my best to overlay old and new images, or old and current images of Westminster and Whitehall area, to give you an idea of what was there and what was there and what's there now. It's unrecognisable. If you go to the Horse Guards parade ground, though, you are around about the area where Henry VIII's tilt yard was. So you've got effectively his pleasure side of the palace, where Horse Guards parade and Downing Street and everything is. That's very interesting. Why is Downing Street there? I mean, I can tell you, but we'll be here all day if I keep going off on these tangents. Downing Street, think of it compared to the seats of the Prime Minister or the equivalent, the President, everywhere else. And we have a townhouse off the edge, but down a side street, basically. So there's on a bog as well, by the way. Yeah, some major underpinning work had to be done there. And that's where our Prime Minister lives. Anyway, there's a whole story behind that as well. I won't go into it. I really will be here all day. Monday's room. Okay, we were talking about it's just Michael says, when you next go on Westminster Tube, look for the doors in the walls. Westminster Tube is the deepest tube station in London to avoid government tunnels. Oh, is Westminster the deepest? That's what I thought it was Charing Cross. Right, okay. I have been through one of the tunnels actually, from Portcullis House into the House of Parliament a long time ago. We did tourists behaving badly. Now, when we do our rooms on Instagram, we're trying to record them in order to put them on a podcast. So I will let you know when that's going to be available. Monday's room was about tourists behaving badly, but I think our signals, Cats especially, was a bit too ropey. So we're not going to be able to put that out on the podcast. But it was really interesting what some people do when they visit different sites. Cat had lots, so Cat Marchant, who's Dr. Cat Reading the Past on YouTube, had lots of stories about what happens when people are in costume, and people sort of treat them as if, I don't know, as if they're just part of the fabric of the place, and they touch them and they say things to them, and it's very, very odd. It was an interesting discussion. Perhaps we'll redo that one at some point. History After Dark, though, last night we had a week off. Kat had a prior engagement. Again, something that should have happened in 2020. She got to do last night and went to the theatre, which is fantastic. So we'll be back next week with History After Dark, and we talk about the history of courtship, the history of courting and courtship. So if you're around at 8:15 London time next Wednesday night, then join us for that. We're on Dr. Cat's Instagram profile, which is at katrina.marchant. So that'd be fun if you join us for that. Like I said, we're recording them and they will go out on a podcast really soon as well. I have finally got around. I'm so sorry to patrons who you were waiting on me. I do a 3-monthly look ahead of what's coming up in Patreon, so that obviously people who are already a patron know what's coming up, and anyone of you who think you might be interested in joining my Patreon, you know what you're going to get. Now, if you join, you also get access to the back catalogue, which is growing nicely. So, you know, if you haven't got anything to do for like a couple of months, you could come and join. I'm beginning with a blog next week. Next Thursday is Remembrance Day here. So, everywhere, but celebrates Remembrance Day, I presume, the 11th of November. And I'm doing a blog about how Britain began remembering. So what was it, the process that by which we got Remembrance Day, by which we got the cenotaph, the grave of the unknown warrior? How did that come about? So I'm going to be doing a blog, and that will go live in Patreon next week. Oh, also next week, the interview I did with Antonia Kearney about Sarah Churchill, who is, to be fair, whether you like her or not, a fascinating character. Not Antonia, Sarah Churchill. That's going live to patrons a week earlier than everyone else. And that will be live as well next Thursday. And to everyone else, you can listen to that from the 18th. And then on the 18th for patrons as well, I've got a virtual tour of Blenheim Palace, and I'm going to be doing a live. I need to find out where I'm going to be going, but I go, if I can, monthly somewhere and do a live walk around. So we've done Harvington Hall, we've done St Paul's Cathedral, we've done other places that I can't remember off the top of my head. Then the following month we've got Marion, this year will be the 100th anniversary of the Unknown Soldier at Arlington. Oh, of course, there's many, isn't there? Sorry, I'm obviously talking about the one at Westminster Abbey, but yes. Michael, I run too fast to get to court. Michael, am I doing anything on Monmouth? Not in the plan at the moment, but you know, I'm always open to suggestions. I'm always really, you know, I like challenging myself to get into other bits of history as well. Or the people I should know more about probably. December, I'll be doing a blog on the Lindisfarne Gospels. They're amazing. And on the 9th, if any of you have seen some of the posts I've put out about Haddon Hall, beautiful. It's sort of a Tudor time capsule, but it wasn't built during the Tudor times. It was much earlier. However, really early on in the 18th century, like 1703, the family moved out and moved to Belvoir Castle. And so it just stopped, you know, the development of it stopped. And it's since, so it was for 200 years, the family didn't live there. And then they moved back and since have been renovating and restoring. And it's really beautiful. Really, really beautiful. So I'll be doing a piece on that for patrons on the 9th of December. And then on the 16th, I'm doing Christmas in Stratford upon Avon. That will be the live walk around. We'll go and have a look what they're doing for Christmas in Stratford. In January, I'm doing a blog on Henry VIII's divorce petition. Before anyone points out, yes, I know technically it was an annulment. And then on the 13th of January is going to be the release of the interview I'm going to be doing with Tracy Borman. Now, if you are a patron over on Patreon, then I will be polling you really soon to ask you what questions you would like me to put to Tracy on your behalf. So if you'd like to put a question to Tracy, I will put a post on Patreon and you can ask a question, and I will let her know who has asked the question. And then each quarter, so every 3 months, I do a bigger quarterly event. And in January, January is the anniversary of the death of Catherine of Aragon. So I'm going to be doing a quarterly event on remembering Catherine of Aragon, and we'll cover Peterborough Cathedral, where she's buried, and all sorts around Catherine of Aragon. So if you're interested, then you can look at patreon.com/British history, and I've put that calendar on there as a public post, so you can go and check it out. If you don't want to be a patron, that's cool as well, because there's loads of stuff I'm doing that isn't in there, but it's pretty special, the stuff that I'm doing in there. Yes, what else was I going to talk to you about then? Because that's there's all the live events as well. I know what it was. Daddy Pig loves to dig. Thank you for your question about dates. If you sign up to my newsletter, I send out a newsletter in inverted commas each Sunday, and in there I link to videos I've done, live events I've done. I've got a little calendar in there, and notifications of things that are coming up as well. So you can, so hopefully, because there's quite a lot. There's quite a lot nowadays. So I do this every week, the history live chat every Thursday at 1:00. Michael, you got to become a patron if you want to ask a question. It's cash for questions, legitimately. You've worked in Parliament, you know how it works. Ooh. Anyway, you've put me off. You've put me off now, or I've put myself off. Yeah. So if you sign up to the newsletter, the link is in my bio on Instagram. Sorry, YouTube. I'm not actually sure how to do it on YouTube. Then you can get that, and it's just a link to lots of things that I've been doing in there every week. So yeah, there's this each Thursday. Every Friday you can catch me twice. 4:00 is the Visiting Tudor Britain room. Like I say, tomorrow 4:00 we're going live on Sarah Morris's profile. That's at the Tudor Travel Guide, and we're talking about following in the footsteps of Elizabeth of York. Now I know I'm going to be talking about Eltham Palace, so we'll be talking about properties that are significant in the story of Elizabeth of York. Michael, I'll pay to get my knighthood. Well, I've got to become Prime Minister first, so you might have a bit of a wait. We'll sort it out later. So yeah, and then next time I'll be live after Friday is so that's 4:00 Friday, 5:00 on Clubhouse. We'll be going live. We're talking about the Gunpowder Plot. I have a video also going live on Saturday about the Gunpowder Plot, and I've got some posts going out. So on Instagram, if you might have already seen, I've put a post about the lantern that Guy Fawkes supposedly had with him when he was arrested tonight in history. So going from the 4th to the 5th. Has Instagram lost my... Can you hear me still on Instagram? That was another phone call coming through. Sorry, video on the Gunpowder Plot coming up on Saturday. No, not Saturday, tomorrow. Tomorrow's the 5th. Saturday is the video about Princess Charlotte's death. And there's some posts. So the post about Guy Fawkes' lantern, I've already put out on Instagram. I've got one about the Monteagle letter. This is the letter that foiled the plot, or led to the foiling of the plot. So have a look on my Instagram. It's gone again. Knew it. Right. I don't know how I'm going to stop that. Sorry, everybody. Okay. It's totally gone. Right. Anyway, sorry. Thank you for keeping with me on YouTube. I'm going to carry on here, and Instagram will just have to do one, honestly. Right. So that's about it anyway. So I'm going to wrap up for today. Thank you so much for joining me. And I will be back, like I say, tomorrow on Instagram. Tomorrow on Instagram at 4:00, Clubhouse at 5:00, and I'll be back here again for Thursday History Chats Live at 1:00 next Thursday on Remembrance Day. So thank you all for joining me. I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day, and I will see you really soon. Bye.